Hello and good evening. A very happy Dussehra to all our viewers. The nation celebrated the end of the 9-day festive period with caution and restraint, bearing the pandemic in mind today. The day also saw Defence Minister Rajnath Singh doing Shastra Puja at the high-altitude Sukna War Memorial in Darjeeling and saying India wants the border tension with China to end, but won't give up an inch. We'll get you all the details about the update on Newsnight tonight. I'm Gautam Roy. And we'll also be talking about, with our guests, Prime Minister Narendra Modi's renewed call to all citizens to become vocal for local to make India global where its products are concerned. But first, our headlines. Prime Minister Narendra Modi addresses the nation in the 17th edition of his Mann Ki Baat 2.0 broadcast, greets the nation in the context of the upcoming festivals and asks them to maintain restraint along with wearing masks and taking other precautions. Urges people to light a lamp in the honor of brave Jawans posted at the border. Also remembers national unity icon Sardar Patel. The PM asks citizens to remember their resolve of being vocal for local while doing festive shopping. Says many of our local products, including khadi, have the potential of making a mark at the global stage. Raksha Mantri is on a 2-day visit to West Bengal and Sikkim, pays tribute to Jawans at Sukna War Memorial in Darjeeling. Also attends Shastra Puja on the occasion of Vijayadashmi. Says India wants to end border tension with China peacefully, but will not let anyone take even an inch of our land. Dussehra Day also sees the RSS celebrating its foundation day. Sangh Chief performs traditional Shastra Puja at its headquarters in Nagpur, praises the centre and armed forces stand to counter China's expansionist policy. In his address, says China picked up fight with many countries, but India's response has stunned the dragon. Campaigning for the first phase of Bihar Assembly elections is set to end on Monday. Election Commission's all set for polling in the 28th of October, 71 seats, first phase. Dussehra Day sees leaders of political parties and coalitions doing furious campaigning. NDA, Mahagathbandhan and other parties hold multiple rallies. The BJP targets the Congress over its tie with the Jamaat-e-Islami, says the party, claiming to be secular, is promoting radicalization. Seeks answers on the rival party's arrangement with groups like the Jamaat and the PFI. Paddy procurement and minimum support price for Kharif 2020-21 season gains good momentum. Shows increase of 23% over last year at this point of time. Punjab alone contributes nearly 66% of the total procurement so far. And the festival of Dussehra is being celebrated across the country with traditional devotion and fervour, keeping in mind pandemic-related precautions and protocols. President, Vice President and Prime Minister convey festival greetings to citizens on the occasion. Prime Minister Narendra Modi shared his thoughts with the people of the country and abroad in the 17th edition of his Mann Ki Baat 2.0 radio broadcast. He said all citizens should maintain mutual brotherhood, even when many continuously try to sow the seeds of suspicion in our minds and try to divide the country.
With an aim to encourage mutual brotherhood and unity among countrymen, Prime Minister Narendra Modi urged people to instill a feeling of affection and affinity in speech, behavior and actions.
तीर्थाटन अपने आप में भारत को एक सूत्र में पिरोता है। ज्योतिर्लिंगों और शक्तिपीठों की श्रृंखला भारत को एक सूत्र में बांधती है। त्रिपुरा से लेकर गुजरात तक, जम्मू कश्मीर से लेकर तमिलनाडु तक स्थापित हमारी आस्था के केंद्र हमें एक करते हैं। इसी प्रकार सिखों के पवित्र स्थलों में नांदेड़ साहब और पटना साहब गुरुद्वारे शामिल हैं। हमारे सिख गुरुओं ने भी अपने जीवन और सत्कार्यों के माध्यम से एकता की भावना को प्रगाढ़ किया है। पिछली शताब्दी में हमारे देश में डॉक्टर बाबा साहब आम्बेडकर जैसी महान विभूतियां रही, जिन्होंने हम सभी को संविधान के माध्यम से एकजुट किया। साथियों, यूनिटी इज पावर, यूनिटी इज स्ट्रेंथ, यूनिटी इज प्रोग्रेस, यूनिटी इज एम्पावरमेंट, यूनाइटेड वी विल स्केल न्यू हाइट्स। वैसे ऐसी ताकतें भी मौजूद रही हैं जो निरंतर हमारे मन में संदेह का बीज बोने की कोशिश करते रहते हैं, देश को बांटने का प्रयास करते हैं। देश ने भी हर बार इन बद इरादों का मुंहतोड़ जवाब दिया है।
He even urged citizens to visit the website ekbharat.gov.in and contribute as much as possible.
हमें निरंतर अपनी क्रिएटिविटी से, प्रेम से, हर पल प्रयास पूर्वक अपने छोटे से छोटे कामों में एक भारत श्रेष्ठ भारत के खूबसूरत रंगों को सामने लाना है। एकता के नए रंग भरने हैं और हर नागरिक को भरने हैं। इस संदर्भ में मैं आप सबसे एक वेबसाइट देखने का आग्रह करता हूं, ekbharat.gov.in। इसमें नेशनल इंटीग्रेशन की हमारी मुहिम को आगे बढ़ाने के कई प्रयास दिखाई देंगे। इसका एक दिलचस्प कॉर्नर है आज का वाक्य। इस सेक्शन में हम हर रोज एक वाक्य को अलग अलग भाषाओं में कैसे बोलते हैं यह सीख सकते हैं। आप इस वेबसाइट के लिए कंट्रीब्यूट भी करें।
Highlighting various issues in his Mann Ki Baat address, the Prime Minister laid special emphasis on promoting brotherhood and communal harmony among citizens. Bureau Report, DD India.
Also remembering Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, whose birth anniversary is now just around the corner, the PM talked about one of his lesser-known special attributes and how we could all imbibe it in our lives to deal with the tough times.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi remembered first Home Minister of Independent India, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel. As Sardar Patel devoted his entire life for the unity of the country, his birth anniversary on the 31st of October is observed as National Unity Day. In his Mann Ki Baat address, PM Modi also talked about another aspect of Sardar Patel's life, which is maintaining a sense of humor, irrespective of how difficult the situations are.
बहुत कम लोग मिलेंगे जिनके व्यक्तित्व में एक साथ कई सारे तत्व मौजूद हो। वैचारिक गहराई, नैतिक साहस, राजनीतिक विलक्षणता, कृषि क्षेत्र का गहरा ज्ञान और राष्ट्रीय एकता के प्रति समर्पण भाव। क्या आप सरदार पटेल के बारे में एक बात जानते हैं जो उनके सेंस ऑफ ह्यूमर को दर्शाती है? बापू ने सरदार पटेल के बारे में कहा था, उनकी विनोदपूर्ण बातें मुझे इतना हंसाती थी कि हंसते हंसते पेट में बल पड़ जाते थे। ऐसा दिन में एक बार नहीं, कई कई बार होता था। इसमें हमारे लिए भी एक सीख है, परिस्थितियां कितनी भी विषम क्यों न हो, अपने सेंस ऑफ ह्यूमर को जिंदा रखिए। यह हमें सहज तो रखेगा ही, हम अपनी समस्या का समाधान भी निकाल पाएंगे।
PM Modi said Sardar Patel invoked the mantra of unity in diversity in the mind of every Indian.
भारतीय जनमानस को स्वतंत्रता आंदोलन से जोड़ा। उन्होंने आजादी के साथ किसानों के मुद्दों को जोड़ने का काम किया। उन्होंने राज्य रजवाड़ों को हमारे राष्ट्र के साथ एक करने का काम किया। ये विविधता में एकता के मंत्र को हर भारतीय के मन में जगा रहे थे।
Referring to Valmiki Jayanti, the PM said, Maharishi Valmiki ji always emphasized positive thinking, and his conduct, thoughts and ideals are the inspiration and guiding force for our resolve for a new India.
मेरे प्यारे देशवासियों, 31 अक्टूबर को हम वाल्मीकि जयंती भी मनाएंगे। मैं महर्षि वाल्मीकि को, वो कहते हैं, किसी भी मनुष्य की इच्छा शक्ति अगर उसके साथ हो तो वह कोई भी काम बड़ी आसानी से कर सकता है। यह इच्छा शक्ति ही है जो कई युवाओं को असाधारण कार्य करने की ताकत देती है। महर्षि वाल्मीकि के आचार, विचार और आदर्श आज न्यू इंडिया के हमारे संकल्प के लिए प्रेरणा भी है और दिशा निर्देश भी है।
The Prime Minister urged people to take inspiration from great men who teach us to continue to move forward with strong determination, even in adverse circumstances. Bureau Report, DD India.
And the Prime Minister also put forth his vocal for local mantra to urge all listeners to buy domestically produced goods and services, particularly during the festive period. He emphasized on how a number of Indian products have the potential to compete with the best in the world and make a mark for themselves at the global stage. The need is that we should feel a sense of pride for our products and promote them as much as possible.
आज जब हम लोकल के लिए वोकल हो रहे हैं, तो दुनिया भी हमारे लोकल प्रोडक्ट्स की फैन हो रही है। हमारे कई लोकल प्रोडक्ट्स में ग्लोबल होने की बहुत बड़ी शक्ति है।
Prime Minister Narendra Modi reiterated his vocal for local clarion call on Sunday during his Mann Ki Baat 2.0 radio broadcast. But at the same time, the PM also underlined that India's local products have the potential to be catapulted to the global stage. The PM cited examples of Khadi and Mexico's Oaxaca Khadi to put his point across to the listeners.
कोरोना के इस समय में खादी के मास्क भी बहुत पॉपुलर हो रहे हैं। देश भर में कई जगह सेल्फ हेल्प ग्रुप्स और दूसरी संस्थाएं खादी के मास्क बना रहे हैं। मेक्सिको में एक जगह है ओहाका। इस इलाके में कई गांव ऐसे हैं जहां स्थानीय ग्रामीण खादी बुनने का काम करते हैं।
While every nation aspires to become self-reliant and export as much of its goods and services as possible, apart from policy interventions, but what is also required that we back domestically produced goods and services to the hilt with a sense of pride and promote them. The country has many products which can fulfill India's global aspirations. Take toys for instance. Abduka in Kerala's Wayanad district makes wooden toys high on quality and safety. The country has countless craft persons like Abduka who can help India realize its dreams. Several self-help groups are also adding pace to India's strides to become Atmanirbhar or self-reliant. Bareilly's Shiv Shakti self-help group has scores of women who started manufacturing slippers to prove their mettle to the village.
I started this at micro level and used glasses and similar things and made artifacts. My toys are durable so that people come to buy it.
कच्चा माल सब दिल्ली से लाते हैं, फिर चप्पल हम मशीन से काटते हैं, बाजार में बेचते हैं। अब काम कर रहे हैं, खुद कमा रहे हैं, अपने पैरों पर खड़े हुए गए।
In these COVID times, many self-help groups are also engaged in mask making. At the local level, there is no dearth of groups into making pickles and preserves, decorative items, custom jewelry and many other handicraft items. Indian handloom, metalworks and many traditional items are world famous, ensuring quality standardization, robust marketing and branding can take it to a different level around the globe.
एक तो ये है कि लोगों को क्या चाहिए, लोगों का क्या अंडरस्टैंडिंग है, लोगों की क्या इमोशनल, फिजिकल, सोशल रिक्वायरमेंट है, उसको ठीक तरह से समझना चाहिए। और दूसरा, वी हैव टू हैव समथिंग मोर, क्वालिटी बहुत अच्छी होनी चाहिए कि जिससे देखते ही लोगों को लगे कि चलो ये एक अजीब गरीब चीज़ है, बहुत सुंदर चीज़ है और ये हमने कहीं देखी नहीं है।
The nation's startups are also contributing to the national effort. Indore's young mechanical engineer has developed a high-powered solar dryer which can dehydrate large amounts of fruits and vegetables by just using the sun's rays in little time. The country's youth are connecting the dots of innovation with self-reliance to take Atmanirbhar mission forward.
सिक्किम में ऑर्गेनिक उत्पादों के लिए हम वहाँ के स्थानीय किसानों के साथ काम करते हैं। उसके लिए हमने वहाँ के किसानों को ट्रेनिंग प्रदान करी है मॉडर्न फार्मिंग टेक्निक्स में। हमने टेक्नोलॉजी डिहाइड्रेशन में इनोवेशन करा है जिससे कि प्रोडक्ट बेटर क्वालिटी का हो सके।
Vocal for local and Atmanirbhar Bharat, both mantras are interlinked. India has the human resources, but if it has to become self-reliant, its products have to be to compete with the best in the world. It has the R&D, innovation and implementation capabilities to take its goods and services from local to global. Getting vocal about by one and all is an essential component of that goal. Newsnet Desk, DD India.
And that's what our In Focus tonight is also all about. Vocal for local to take India global. That's the kind of call that the PM has given. And to talk about it, we have Dilip Chinoy with us, he's Secretary General FICCI, and also Shubhamoy Bhattacharjee joining us, senior economic journalist as well, and a very frequent guest on our shows. Good evening to you both. But first to you, Dilip Chinoy, just tell us, in the first place, the Prime Minister reiterating his call for going vocal for local. The initial call had come along with Atmanirbhar Bharat in May, when the pandemic was at a different stage altogether. People were facing a lot of lockdown blues at that time as well, and that's when this clarion call had come from the Prime Minister. So what sort of a resonance do you think it has had so far, and what kind of a potential does it have, particularly keeping in mind this festive period where people go into markets, or at least in this COVID phase are largely online, engaging in a lot of e-commerce purchases?
I think, you rightly said that in the Atmanirbhar package, the first, advocacy of vocal for local was made. The second time when it really happened was when the Ministry of Textiles actually came out with a fortnight-long campaign, Vocal for Handmade. And also, the other aspect which the Prime Minister has been promoting is this one district, one product. And very recently, UP had a virtual exhibition and selling products worldwide. But in the context of the physical, the festive season which you see today is a tradition that people gift. The gifting is a tradition during this time. And in this scenario, and when you come on to Diwali and when you come on to Guru Nanak Jayanti, there is also a thing of decorating the homes with lights.
Yes.
So the Prime Minister actually made two very interesting observations today, amongst others, right? He said that when we think of gifting, think of promoting local, right? So buy local products, gift local products. That will help you actually rejuvenate a lot of, local industry. The second point he's talked about was he said, why don't, the diya jalate hain. Diya is a very local product against LED bulbs, which are typically, ladis and all, which are imported. So I think, this whole thing of even when you're celebrating, think of using local products as part of your celebration process. And when you're gifting and you're buying things for the young children and others, please look at being very vocal for local products. So these were the two specific things he said in this, but there were many other parts of his Man Ki Baat today, which amplified his whole focus on, vocal for local, but we'll come to that a bit later.
Okay. Shubhamoy, in terms of your assessment, how's this call for going vocal for local going so far, bearing in mind that when this call was given, we were at a different stage of the pandemic, the economy was in a different sort of a zone, and now things have been picking up. And this is a point where reiterating this call can be very effective, which is perhaps why Prime Minister Modi has done that.
Because what you're saying is that essentially it is not just a call, the government is also buttressing it with its policies.
Yes.
So the duties on imports, the idea that India will be promoting exports with a large amount of local production, stopping those particular imports where the value addition was suspect in terms of the local value addition, and also ensuring that production incentives are given out fairly liberally to sectors which can show that they will be going in for large export production. Overall, what is the government is showing is that it's going to stay the course and is going to be there pushing this particular strategy for quite some time. There have been discussions, there have been a lot of discussions about it. It's quite a different position from what the government had been earlier for very many years. And it's clearly now, by his repeated assertion, by the policies that have been subsequently being announced by the finance ministries and other ministries, they're making it very clear that this is a policy that is going to stay. And that, I think, is what industry would need. because they would, along with, while they will be enthused by the Prime Minister's exhortation for vocal for local, they are also seeing action on the ground in terms of clear demonstration that the government wants wants a production structure to be organized in a particular way. And that I think is very, very significant measure, set of complementary measures which are making the government's intention clear.
Well, certainly. I mean, going vocal for local is part of the larger campaign, really, or the mission of Atmanirbhar Bharat, and the government has carried out a lot of policy interventions to ensure that that transition happens. And Dilip Chinoy, in terms of just this particular component, going vocal for local, do you think there is more scope for the government here to do, which will, apart from taking that message across that the Prime Minister is giving himself, really prod the people in the direction, encourage them to go local for vocal, vocal for local, because people do have this sense that they need to do that to ensure that the country prospers and progresses. And but at the same time, they do have a lot of choice, even from things that are not local.
Well, again, here the government is looking at different types of interventions. So one of the reasons why a lot of people seem to prefer, foreign goods or imported goods, because there's a perception that Indian goods are not of the same quality. So if you look at what the Ministry of Commerce and Industry has actually been doing across sector over sector, they're looking at special quality control norms so that, domestic industry also manufactures products according to international quality. The second thing which the government is doing is actually they've identified 24 key sectors.
Correct.
And each of those sectors, and many of these are very important local sectors like furniture or toys, and I'll come back to toys in a minute, or textiles, ready-made garments, technical textiles. Looking at these 24 sectors where we can increase value addition in India and look at how Indian companies and Indian industry could take over a significant part of the domestic market and also be ready to export. The third thing which the government has done in the very recent past is they've taken sectors like mobile phones, electronic components, active pharmaceutical ingredients, key starting materials, medical devices, and launched a production-linked incentive scheme here, which is looking at getting domestic companies to increase their production, both with a view of actually substituting imports because there is a disruption in the supply chain in these matters, and looking at exports. If you take the very oft-quoted example, and it's quoted very often so people may forget it, but if you look at the beginning of the pandemic, we hardly made any masks, any PPEs, any sanitizers, etc.
That's right.
But now you actually have a capacity and you're exporting to the world. And they're as good quality as anywhere else. So it actually demonstrates that if there's a partnership between government and industry, then you can you can address the issues which impact competitiveness in India, which impact quality in India, and you can make in India for the world, which is again another phrase which the Prime Minister used in an earlier space. Regarding toys, there's a very, very special emphasis being given by the Prime Minister, and all ministries are working together, and you'll see some very significant announcements in the toys space when you go forward.
Yes, certainly, and we are anticipating that as well. And there will always be those who say that this is very challenging, especially considering the kind of phase that we've been in even before the pandemic came, because the economy was in a different sort of a tougher space, and then the pandemic, of course, was the hugest possible disruption one could have never imagined, Shubhamoy. But this is the time when you need to turn things around as well, and one must remember, perhaps, when one thinks about the difficulties, that India has done it, in other spheres as well, things were thought to be impossible. For example, Swachh Bharat, there was a declaration of India being open defecation free. We built a huge brand, Incredible India, in the past as well, which has reaped very rich dividends, and one must not forget that.
That's right, Gautam. And in fact, that brand is an interesting point that you've introduced. And That's exactly what the Prime Minister was, for instance, saying today. I mean, if you see his long analysis of how khadi has become a popular one, not only because first of all because of the COVID pandemic, the implications that khadi has shown, the ability that khadi has shown, and he compared it with what khadi in Oaxaca in Mexico, that brand which Mark Brown has created by having seen what Gandhiji did and popularizing Oaxaca khadi. And now those are the sort of stuff which makes it a object of desire, and that's what essentially would be necessary when you want to position a product which is not that well known initially or not known from a particular geography, and you want to push it very strongly. Then obviously making it a brand goes a long way to create the desire among the people to buy into it, to use it more regularly, to be seen with those products. And that is where the success of building a production line comes in.
Yes.
So the rural areas where a lot of these products, where disparate sort of groups can sort of coalesce to create a successful, consistently producing a line of product which has got a market abroad or within India. And I think that's a very strong message that comes through from what you were saying today.
Certainly. And, Dilip Chinoy, there are areas where, things, products or, a particular brand can also be associated uniquely with India. But now perhaps the challenge is to make forays in areas where our products, our brands can compete with the best in the world in the widest possible range of products. How are we building up to that?
I think what the world is really looking for is a lot of organic, natural, and sustainable products. So the Prime Minister actually talked about khadi today. The example he talked about how someone in Mexico has taken this and looking at a kind of a very special Mexican version of khadi. So when people are looking at natural and sustainable, then khadi is one example. The second example is in Ayurveda, which again the Prime Minister has been giving a great emphasis in, and in the current pandemic also the immunity nature of a lot of Ayurvedic products has been actually talked about, and
Yes.
there's a global outreach program which is coming up. Third, again today in today's speech he talked about something interesting. He talks about sports, indigenous sports, as a soft power, and he took the example of Malcolm, for example, which is a very specific thing.
We've
But
already
then
had
also,
yoga.
Yeah. And what he also talked about today, although he talked about this very interesting website where they looked about local flavors and local foods. I think Indian food, is also taking the world by storm in many areas. And that means that spices from India, in the Atmanirbhar package, there was a very specific focus on medicinal plants.
Mm-hmm.
Again, if you're looking at that, and in the 24 sectors that I just mentioned earlier, they're also looking at creating a brand around those products through the Indian Brand Equity Foundation and industry working together.
Yes.
So it's a multiple kind of strategy across different industries, but with one purpose in mind: strengthening local production, strengthening local value addition, looking at local employment, creating a vocal for local across different segments, not only in manufacturing, but also in agricultural products and also in services.
Right. And Shubhamoy, no one can really expect this to happen overnight. It will take time. But again, this is something that we really cannot wait for too long. And the sooner it happens, we have to develop capabilities to do it as well. How are we progressing in that direction?
Well, as I said, first thing that the government has shown with particular respect to this policy is that it's going to stay the course. And that is coming out in the in the policy statements, in the tax announcement that is coming from both the finance ministry as well as the commerce ministry. And that is important because that gives industry the confidence that this is going to be there. It's not something that's going to be, will o' the wisp. It's there articulated, but then it doesn't really lead to any business proposition. So that is definitely starting to show up. And that's important because the world also is becoming, frankly, very leery about having production lines which are too far stretched across the globe. So it is consolidating across dense consumer focus, and that's where India is right about saying that we want some of our production lines to be within the country, so that in times of stress, which happened during the COVID pandemic initially, we are not caught napping, and that is something that is happening across the world. So there's no reason why India shouldn't be looking at that possibility and that as an opportunity, because that is what we have been missing every time, that manufacturing, whenever there's been an opportunity, we have let it go. This time we seem to be saying that we are going to push the opportunities push the possibilities.
Okay.
And that is very important. The second part is that in all this sort of stuff, it's very important that along with the policies, the government also creates a sense of identity.
Okay, we seem to have, I think, had a problem with the network with Shubhamoy. But Dilip Chandra, let me come to you with one final question. There are some segments or sectors that are advocating that at this point, if you want to really encourage, vocal for local, one could look at, GST rates on some of these products that we need to promote. And that is a question for the GST Council, not the government alone. And do you think that that is something that the GST Council should look at, considering, well, there could be issues of scale that could come in that might make sense if, rates could be cut on some products. But the overall question of revenue still remains, and there is a lot of stress on the revenue front at this stage as well.
I think you're absolutely right. So while there's a lot being done on the supply side, right? In the last two announcements which were made, there were some festival, advance and a kind of a cash incentive for the LTC, etc. So those kind of demand stimuluses were made. But there seems to be, and more recently, the government, the decision to look at loans below 2 crores and not charge interest on interest like that. So these are some steps there. But for some sectors of the economy, where there is no discretionary spend and there is no spend normally beyond the festival season, right? In those areas, to stimulate demand, one of the suggestions has been that you look at reducing GST rates by 10% or 20% for a limited period of time, so that there is a propensity to spend and people look at that. That's one of the suggestions there. But like you rightly said, the collections have not been in the first 6 months. The collections have not been good. The state, revenues are facing kind of a stress. Their expenditure has gone up. But I think at an appropriate time, when it is required, and you heard both, Mr. Bajaj, the finance, Secretary DEA, and the finance minister talk about that if there's required, another stimulus is required, you can actually take it front.
For which again more revenue is required to give stimulus also.
I think the GST collections reaching now, indications are plus 1 lakh crore this year. This month, and if that is the thing, and if there can be a slight reduction in specific items and still yield to greater, to equal or greater collection than last year, then it is something worth considering, because there are some sectors where the propensity to spend, autos, it's a traditional buying item here. Some other items are bought during this period. But for the other products, then it may require some stimulus going forward. But I'm sure that what happens in October and November, the finance ministry will look at it, and if there's a need to do it, I think there'll be consensus.
Okay, let's see what sort of collective wisdom really prevails if and when that question is taken up. We're completely out of time for tonight. Very happy, Dussehra, to you. Let me say good night to you at this point. I would request our viewers to stay on with us. Also to Shubhamoy, thanks for joining us this evening, Shubhamoy, to talk about going vocal for local. Now, moving on, Defence Minister Rajnath Singh has said that India wants an end to the border tension with China, but will not compromise on its territory even by an inch. He made these remarks during his visit to Darjeeling and high-altitude border areas in Sikkim, where he did Shastra Puja and celebrated the Dussehra with soldiers. Here's more.
Raksha Mantri Rajnath Singh on Sunday celebrated Dussehra with soldiers in a high-altitude border area in Sikkim. He also performed Shastra Puja at Sukna War Memorial in Darjeeling. Army Chief General Manoj Mukund Narbane was also present. Rajnath Singh on Twitter said, Shastra Pujan is an integral part of India's military tradition. I was privileged to attend the Shastra Pujan ceremony held at the headquarters of Tri Shakti Corps at Sukna on the auspicious occasion of Vijay Dashmi. The Defence Minister also said that India wants an end to the border tension with China in eastern Ladakh, but at the same time asserted that Indian soldiers will never allow even an inch of the country to be taken away by anyone.
इस समय भारत और चीन की सीमा पर भी जो तनाव चल रहा है, भारत तो ये चाहता है कि यह तनाव समाप्त हो, शांति स्थापित हो। उद्देश्य हमारा ये है। लेकिन कभी-कभी कुछ ऐसी नापाक हरकतें होती रहती हैं। लेकिन मैं पूरी तरह से आश्वस्त हूं और आश्वस्त ही नहीं हूं, मुझे पूरा भरोसा भी है कि हमारे सेना के जवान किसी भी सूरत में अपने भारत की 1 इंच भी जमीन किसी दूसरे के हाथों में नहीं जाने देंगे।
After performing the puja, Raksha Mantri inaugurated a new road in Sikkim through a video conference from Sukna. He dedicated the 19.85 kilometer alternate alignment of the National Highway 310 from kilometer 0.00 to kilometer 19.35 to the nation. Raksha Mantri, while addressing the gathering on the occasion, complimented the Border Roads Organization for its unwavering commitment towards delivering outstanding quality infrastructure in record time and optimal cost.
कुछ समय तक पहले तक हमारे यहाँ एक विषम धारणा थी कि सीमावर्ती क्षेत्रों में सड़कों का विकास हमारे हित में नहीं है। समझा जाता था कि सीमा की सड़कें विपरीत परिस्थितियों में हमारा ही नुकसान कर सकती हैं। हमने इस धारणा को तोड़ा है और सीमावर्ती क्षेत्रों में विकास की नई राहें खुली हैं।
Raksha Mantri said that the construction of 225-kilometer double-lane road is planned under the Bharatmala project in North Sikkim. These works are planned in 9 packages with an estimated cost of Rs 5,710 crore.
With Defence Minister Rajnath Singh travelling all the way to the Eastern Theatre and interacting with the troops participating in the Shastra Puja on the occasion of Vijay Dashmi, it goes a long way in boosting the morale of these troops who are serving at such heights like 14,000 feet. With cameraman Pramod Negi, Amritpal Singh, DD News, Nathula Pass.
RSS Chief Mohan Bhagwat performed the traditional Shastra Puja at the annual Vijay Dashmi celebrations in Maharashtra's Nagpur city today. Delivering the Satsang Chalak's annual address to Swayam Sevaks, Bhagwat said, securing cooperative ties with our neighbours and in international relations is the only way to neutralize the expansionist aspirations of China. The RSS chief further targeted anti-Indian forces and said that a strange mix of political selfishness, bigotry and alienation, hostility towards India is working against India's national unity. He cautioned the Indian people towards this.
चीन ने इस कालावधि में अपने और सामरिक बल के गर्व में, अभिमान में हमारी सीमाओं का जो अतिक्रमण किया और जिस प्रकार व्यवहार किया, वो तो सारी दुनिया के सामने स्पष्ट है। इस बार भारत ने उसकी जो प्रतिक्रिया दी, उसके कारण वो सहम गया, धक्का मिला उसको। एक सामरिक और आर्थिक दोनों दृष्टि से वो ठिठक जाए इतना धक्का तो उसको मिला है। सामरिक तैयारी में, आर्थिक अपनी स्थिति में, अंतरराष्ट्रीय राजनय में, अपने संबंधों में और पड़ोसी देशों के साथ अपने संबंधों में हमको चाइना से शक्ति में, व्याप्ति में बड़ा होना पड़ेगा। दूसरा उपाय नहीं है।
Now, after observing rituals for 9 days in Navratri, people celebrated the Dussehra with great enthusiasm across the country today. The Dussehra is a festival that marks the end of both Durga Puja and the Navratri festival. This auspicious day is also associated with Lord Ram and how he slayed Ravan to establish the day as one where good triumphed versus evil.
Burning into flames. This is the effigy of Ravan, signifying the victory of good over evil. On one hand, there is a celebration of victory of good over evil, while on the other hand, the fight against COVID-19 pandemic continues. Dussehra was celebrated with religious gaiety and traditional faith throughout the country amid COVID restrictions. In Karnataka, Ayodhya Puja was offered across the state on the occasion of Dasra festivities. Ayodhya Puja is performed on assets and instruments, and people in Karnataka even offer puja to their vehicles and all the assets they use for the livelihood. Ayodhya Puja was also performed by the royal Wadiyar family in a simple manner inside the palace, keeping in view the COVID-19 protocol. The Mysore Dasra is a world-famous festivity during the Navratri. Now all eyes are on the Jumbo Savari, the Grand Elephant March, which will mark the end of the 10-day celebrations on the occasion of Vijayadashmi on Monday. On the day of Dussehra or Vijayadashmi, Lord Ram defeated King Ravan in his quest towards rescuing his wife Sita. This is also the day when goddess Durga slayed the buffalo demon Mahisasur. Bureau Report, DD India.
Now, the first phase of polling in Bihar's three-phased assembly elections is just 3 days away. Top leaders of coalition contenders crisscross the state on Dussehra Day to get their message across to voters. Apart from seeking votes on the development agenda, the day also saw the BJP lashing out against the Mahagathbandhan for attempting to divide the electorate to make a bid to return to power in the state. Take a look.
Dussehra saw leaders from all parties reaching out to voters across Bihar. Chief Minister Nitish Kumar held several rallies, while BJP's Manoj Tiwari was in Harsiddhi. RJD's Tejasvi Yadav took on Nitish in his constituency, while Chirag Paswan was in Brahmapur. Talking first of the NDA, Chief Minister Nitish Kumar addressed huge crowds in Phulparas, Benipur and Kanti. He reached out to women voters in Madhubani at Phulparas, highlighting the steps his government had taken for them. Promoting Maithili language was another issue he raised.
बिहार को हम लोग आगे बढ़ा सके और आपको जानते हैं कि हमने शुरू से ही कहा है कि जब तक मिथिला क्षेत्र का विकास नहीं होगा तब तक बिहार का विकास नहीं हो सकता। मेरे लिए जो इस क्षेत्र का मन में सम्मान का भाव है और हमसे जो भी बन पड़ा, जब से आप लोगों ने काम करने का मौका दिया है तब से हमने सेवा करने की कोशिश की। कुछ लोगों के लिए सीमित पति पत्नी बेटा बेटी यही परिवार है और हमारे लिए पूरा बिहार एक परिवार है और पूरे बिहार के हर लोगों की सेवा करना ही हमारा धर्म है।
Meanwhile, Manoj Tiwari campaigned for BJP candidate Krishna Nandan Paswan in Gaikhat, Harsiddhi. Bihar BJP President Sanjay Jaiswal was also at the rally. Tiwari hailed the NDA combined as the savior of Bihar from Jungle Raj under previous governments. In Delhi, Union Minister Mukhtar Abbas Naqvi hit out at Tejasvi Yadav for his alliance with the Congress party that has joined hands with organizations like PFI.
बिहार को आगे बढ़ाना है, बिहार जहां पहुंच गया है उससे आगे कदम बढ़ाना है। इसलिए मेरा फोकस तेजस्वी नहीं है, मेरा फोकस कोई व्यक्ति नहीं है। हमारा फोकस हमारा गौरवशाली और यहां से आगे बढ़ने वाला बिहार है।
तेजस्वी यादव जी से जरूर पूछना चाहते हैं, क्योंकि बिहार का कई इलाका ऐसा है जो जमात इस्लामी के प्रभाव वाला है या कुछ और उससे जुड़े हुए संगठनों के प्रभाव वाला है। क्या कांग्रेस पार्टी के साथ तेजस्वी यादव जी की पार्टी का जमात इस्लामी और पीएफआई के साथ भी समझौता हुआ है? ये बात तेजस्वी यादव जी को, बिहार की जनता और देश की जनता को स्पष्ट करना होगा।
RJD leader Tejasvi Yadav targeted Nitish Kumar for what he called his narrow and conservative vision in Islampur Assembly constituency in Nalanda. He said the lantern will usher in a new era in Bihar. He addressed a rally in Gaya as well.
नियोजित शिक्षक वाले ने लाठी खाया, समान काम समान वेतन हम लोग दिलाने का काम करेंगे। जीविका की भी आशा दीदी, आंगनबाड़ी महिला, इन सब के मानदेय को दुगुना से भी ज्यादा किया जाएगा और नियमित करने का काम हम लोग करेंगे। ये सारी व्यवस्था, कृषि ऋण माफ हम लोग करेंगे। ये सारा काम जो हम लोग को मौका दीजिए, हम लोग काम करेंगे। अब देखिए, रोजगार मिलेगा, सरकारी नौकरी मिलेगा।
Chirag Paswan thanked the people of Brahmapur for their massive welcome. He said that with their blessings, the LJP's motto of Bihar First, Bihari First will become a reality. Paswan urged the people of Bihar to ask Nitish Kumar for a report card of what his government has achieved over the last 5 years. With 3 days to go for the polls in the first phase of elections, all parties are doing all they can to present the best option before the people of Bihar for the next 5 years. Which way the people go will be known on the 10th of November. Newsnight Desk, DT India.
The day also saw Union Minister Nitin Gadkari laying the foundation stone of a cluster at Varna Industrial Estate, Salaset, Goa through a video link. Union Shipping Minister and Goa Chief Minister Pramod Sawant were also present on the occasion. Addressing the event, the Road Transport and Highways Minister said that the government has given highest priority for development of maritime sector. He further stressed on several initiatives that have been taken by the government to boost economic activities related to that sector.
The government has given the highest priority for development of marine system, marine engines, marine industries, and particularly the maritime sector is concerned, the Goa has got a lot of importance. In the western side, the Goa is one of the important port which is available, where the government is interested to develop development of fast motor boats, catamaran, hovercrafts, and that is the reason that this cluster is very important, which can develop future technology for our marine sector.
The paddy procurement has gained a good momentum, showing an increase of 23% over last year. In the ongoing Kharif marketing season 2020-21, paddy procurement for Kharif has gained good momentum with purchase of over 144.59 million tons of paddy up to the 24th of October. About 12.41 lakh farmers have already been benefited from the ongoing KMS procurement operations. Further, based on the proposal from states, approval has also been accorded for procurement of 45.1 lakh million tons of pulse and oil seeds of Kharif marketing season 2020 for 10 states under price support scheme. Up to the 24th of this month, the government through its nodal agencies has procured 494.54 million tons of moong and urad, having MSP value of 6.43 crores, benefiting 871 farmers in Tamil Nadu, Maharashtra and Haryana. Similarly, 5,089 million tons of copra has also been procured at MSP value of 52.4 crore rupees, benefiting 3,961 farmers in Karnataka and Tamil Nadu. About copra and urad, the rates are ruling above MSP in most of the major producing states. And let's now quickly have a look at what else is making news across the nation.
The air pollution level has further deteriorated in the national capital. People of Delhi NCR continue to suffer from rising pollutants in the air and low visibility. According to Central Pollution Control Board, the air quality index in Anand Vihar was recorded 406, which is under severe category. In Madhya Pradesh, Congress has suffered another political setback ahead of the state by-polls. Madhya Pradesh Congress MLA Rahul Lodhi has resigned from the party and his assembly membership and has joined BJP. In Gujarat, veteran film musician and former BJP MP Mahesh Kanodia has passed away at the age of 83 in Gandhinagar. He was a 3-time BJP MP from Patan in North Gujarat and was suffering from prolonged illness. The Narcotics Control Bureau is investigating drugs-related angle in Bollywood actor Sushant Singh Rajput's death case. A team of Mumbai Zonal Unit has arrested 2 persons, including TV actress Preetika Chauhan in Versova. This is another crucial development in the ongoing drug bust case in the entertainment industry. The court on Sunday has sent both the accused to judicial custody till 8th November. With onion prices crossing Rs 100 per kg in several cities, The centre has imposed stock limits on wholesalers and retailers until the end of the year to prevent hoarding. This is the first time stock limits have been imposed on any commodity after the Essential Commodities Act was amended to reduce such interventions. The stock limit of onions has been fixed at 25 metric tons for bulk sellers and 2 metric tons for retail traders. However, this limit will not apply to imported onions. The counting of votes for Ladakh Autonomous Hill Development Council Leh election will be held on Monday. A total number of 94 candidates of BJP, Congress and Aam Aadmi Party are in fray for 26 seats of the 6th General Autonomous Hill Development Council of Leh. The voting was held on October 23rd with voter turnout of 65.07%.
Let's now get you updates related to COVID-19 from across the country as well.
India has recorded another landmark achievement on Sunday. The national recovery rate has touched 90%. 62,077 have recovered and discharged in the last 24 hours, whereas the new confirmed cases stand at 50,129. Less than 1,000 deaths have been continuously reported since the last 1 week. The deaths are below the 1100 mark since 2nd October. With increasing number of recoveries, this gap is continuously widening. RBI Governor Shaktikant Das has tested positive for coronavirus. He tweeted on Sunday, adding that he is asymptomatic and will continue to work from isolation. In Bihar, the COVID-19 recovery rate has improved to 94.36%, which is more than the national recovery rate. The rate of infection in the state has also come down to 2.1, which is the lowest in the country.
Now let's get you some top international news. Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez announced a new state of emergency on Sunday in an effort to curb soaring coronavirus infections, imposing local nighttime curfews and banning travel between regions in certain cases. The measure goes into force from Sunday night and will require all regions except the Canary Islands to impose a nighttime curfew. The state of emergency will need parliamentary approval to last beyond 15 days. Sanchez asked for Parliament to approve its extension up to the 9th of May. A growing number of regions had been calling on the government to implement this measure. And close by, Italy is shutting cinemas, swimming pools and gyms from Monday in a further attempt to curb the rapid rise in coronavirus infections. Bars and restaurants will have to close by 6 p.m. but shops and a majority of businesses will remain operating. Meanwhile, Spain's cabinet on Sunday agreed on a nationwide state of alarm which would allow for a countrywide curfew, which we've told you about. Both countries were hit hard during the first wave of the pandemic in Europe. And US President Donald Trump has conducted a three-state campaign blitz after voting early in Florida. Trump hopped between rallies in North Carolina, Ohio and Wisconsin as he sought to make up ground against his Democratic challenger Joe Biden. Some 57 million votes have already been cast, a record spurred by the pandemic. Trump has continued to hold packed rallies despite a new surge in coronavirus infections that is particularly affecting the Midwest, home to several electoral battlegrounds that could decide the election. Democratic vice presidential candidate Kamala Harris campaigned in Ohio on Saturday, making a stop at local businesses in Cleveland. Upon arrival at the state, Harris responded to Donald Trump's attack on her from the previous day, referring to her as a female socialist. Supporters cheered as she arrived, and she had a brief conversation with the restaurant's owners about how they were managing during the pandemic. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's cabinet on Sunday approved Israel's normalization accord with Bahrain, which now awaits parliamentary ratification. The accord, signed at a White House ceremony on the 15th of September, where the UAE also established formal ties with Israel, was unanimously approved by Netanyahu's cabinet. Bahrain's cabinet approved the accord on the 19th of October. And on the occasion of the 64th Dhamma Chakra Pravartan Din and Ashok Vijayadashmi, Bhim Vandana and Buddha Vandana were held at Diksha Bhumi in Nagpur. In the presence of Chairman of the Memorial Committee and others, the statue of Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar and Tathagat Lord Gautam Buddha was worshipped amid Bhim Vandana. The celebrations attracted lakhs of Ambedkarites from across the country. And that's all we have for the moment in this edition of Newsnight. Once again, a very happy Dussehra to you. And It's in fact very well celebrated, Dershera, this year, because what has happened because of COVID-19 is that people have had to take a lot of precautions, and let's hope that stays the course, because it is all about masking up India. Have a good night.